Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
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 Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine
Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra.
Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Balagopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Devi Govardhan.
Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Balagopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Devi Govardhan.
Jaya Gauranikai, Jaya Gauranikai, Jaya Gauranikai, Jaya Gauranikai.
Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika, Jaya Gauranika.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishwavada Paramahamsa Paramajikacharya Astutara Sutta Shishimati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishwavada Paramahamsa Paramajikacharya Astutara Sutta Shishimati His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavanta Ki Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam Ki Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Welcome to ISKCON Detroit's Southern Mandir morning Shrimadbhagavatam class. Thank you all for joining. And today we are embarking on the almost last verse with purport in this particular chapter. So we've been studying the chapter regarding the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. So before we get started, let's say a quick prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayam Namaskritya.
Narayam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devi Saraswati Vyasam.
Tato Jayudirye.
Tato Jayudirye.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki. So today we'll be reading from Canto 1, Chapter 12, and it's text 35. Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna.
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna.
Yajagitva Dvijir Nirbam.
Yajagitva Dvijir Nirbam.
Uvasa Kachin Masan.
Uvasaskatichmasan.
Surdam Priyakam Yaya.
Surdam Priyakam Yaya.
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna.
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna.
Yajayitva Dvijir Nirbam.
Yajagitva Dvijir Nirbam.
Uvasa Kachin Masan.
Uvasaskatichmasan.
Surdam Priyakam Yaya.
Surdam Priyakam Yaya.
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna.
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna.
Yajayitva Dvijir Nirbam.
Yajagitva Dvijir Nirbam.
Uvasa Kachin Masan.
Uvasaskatichmasan.
Surdam Priyakam Yaya.
Surdam Priyakam Yaya. Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna
Ahuto Bhagavan Raja
Yajayitva Dvijarapam
Yajayitva Vijayapranapam
Uvasa Katichin Masan
Uvasa Katichi Masan
Suradam Priyakamyaya
Suradam Priyakamyaya
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajya
Ahuto Bhagavan Raja
Yajayitva Dvijarapam
Yajayitva
Vijarapam
Uvasa Katichin Masan
Uvasa Katichi Masan
Suhridam Priyakamyaya
Suradam Priyakamyaya
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna
Ahuto Bhagavan Rajna
Yajai Itiva Vijay Nirupam
Yajayitva Vijayapranapam
Ubasa Katichin Masan
Uvasa Katichin Masan
Suridam Priya Kamyaya
Suridam Priyakamyaya. Do the word for word. Ahuta, being called by
being called by
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan
Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead.
Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead,
Rajna,
Rajna
by the king.
by the king
Yajayitva,
Yajai Iva
causing to be performed.
causing to be performed
Dvijvai,
Vijay
by the learned Brahmanas.
by the Lord Brahmanas
Nirpam,
Nirupam
on behalf of the king.
on behalf of the king
Uvasa,
Uvasa
resided.
resided
Gatichi,
Katichi
a few.
a few
Masa,
Masa
months.
months
Surdan,
Suridam
for the sake of the relatives.
for the sake of the relatives
Priyakamyaya,
Priyakamyaya
for the pleasure.
for the pleasure.
So translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, being invited to the sacrifice of Maharaj Yudhishthir, saw to it that they were performed by qualified, twice-born Brahmanas. After that, for the pleasure of the relatives, the Lord remained a few months. Please repeat. Lord Sri Krishna,
Lord Sri Krishna,
the personality of Godhead,
The personality of Godhead
being invited to
being invited to
the sacrifices
the sacrifices
by Maharaj Yudhishthira,
by Raja Yudhishthira,
saw to it
saw to it
that they were performed
that they were performed
by qualified twice-born Brahmanas.
by qualified twice-born Brahmanas.
After that,
after that
for the pleasure of
for the pleasure of
the relatives,
the relatives.
the Lord remained
The Lord
a
remained
few months.
a few months.
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
He tried.
Lord Sri Krishna was invited by Maharaj Yudhishthir to look into the supervision of the performances of yajna, and the Lord to abide by the orders of his elderly cousin, caused the performance of yajnas by learned twice-born Brahmanas. Simply taking birth in the family of a Brahmana does not make one qualified to perform yajnas. One must be twice born by proper training and initiation from the bona fide acharya. Didn't bring my glass. The once born scion of Brahmana families are equal with the once born Shudras, and such Brahma bandhus or unqualified once born scions must be rejected for any purpose of religious or Vedic function. Lord Sri Krishna was entrusted to look after this arrangement, and perfect as he is, he caused the yajnas to be performed by the bona fide twice-born Brahmanas for successful execution. Jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamala Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Apta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Parnamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So reading the translation one more time. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, being invited to the sacrifices by Maharaj Yudhishthira, saw to it that they were performed by qualified twice-born Brahmanas. After that, for the pleasure of the relatives, the Lord remained a few months. Okay. So, we're coming to the end of this chapter, in which we realize that Maharaj Parikshit is no ordinary king. Right? We've learned quite a bit about him. Even before he was born, he was protected by Krishna in the womb, and therefore during his childhood itself, he was always in spirituality, in Krishna consciousness, serving and worshiping the Lord. As he became emperor, he ruled the entire world, right? Nowadays, we can't even manage to rule one country, one little piece, and he ruled the entire world. But his greatness, as also different from today, was not based on military power, nor was it based on any kind of wealth or prestige. His greatness was due to the fact that he ruled on behalf of Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada often emphasizes that a king is not meant to exploit its citizens, but to guide them towards self-realization. So today's world, we see that leadership means gratifying one's senses, right? I'm president, I'm prime minister, I'm this, I'm that, right? Power and control. I want to control this way and that way, even though what's under our control? Nothing. You're lucky you get your next breath, because that's not even under your control. But in Vedic culture, leadership actually means service and responsibility, right? It was a different form of leadership. And Srila Prabhupada explains in Bhagavatam that the Bhagavatam actually does not glorify ordinary leaders that we would find in today's world. It actually glorifies what we call Krishna conscious leadership. So Bhagavad Gita explains it in chapter 3. There's also so many wonderful kings we read about, right? And how they ruled. And we also read about some of the demoniac kings and how they ruled. And obviously we know the outcomes of those as well too. So two things I wanted to discuss today. One is the concept of this twice-born Brahmanas that come up in this particular purport, and then a little bit more about leadership in this, as it deals with Maharaj Parikshit we've been learning about. So Here, it talks about the qualifications of exalted persons surrounding Maharaj Parikshit, right? He wanted Krishna to supervise and make sure that this yagna is done by these twice-born Brahmanas. Now, Srila Prabhupada also makes very clear in this particular purport that a Brahmana is not designated by birth, right? And stuff. It is a qualification. It is a type of behavior. So let's see what does like a twice-born Brahmana mean, right? A Dvija, as it's stated. So twice-born, again, does not mean that you're born in a Brahmana family. 2 births. So what are these 2 births? So everyone was at one point or another born from the womb of a mother, right? But a Dvija is twice born, which means the second birth is actually a birth of spiritual knowledge. So, born in second birth is through the spiritual knowledge, right? So, firstborn, which is we're here today, is by our parents, right? And the second birth is actually more regarding Vedic education. So in ISKCON, we know there's initiations that take place in which we get connected, to this disciplic succession, this Guru Parampara and stuff, in which we get this Vedic education, right? Passed down, which started from Krishna and gets passed down guru after guru, all the way down and stuff. And the second birth is also represented by what they call receiving the Gayatri Mantra. And it is received, this mantra is received from a bona fide spiritual master, right? Now, this bona fide spiritual master is also very important because the spiritual master comes through this line of disciplic succession. They do not change the meaning of this Vedic education or put their opinions in it or make things up, right? This is all through the process that has been given down to us from Lord Shri Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada also explains that the second birth is an awakening for us of the spiritual intelligence. It's an understanding. And the very first understanding we receive is, I'm not this body, I am servant of Krishna. I'm spirit soul, right? And so understanding lesson number 1, which we get from Bhagavad Gita too, and without this awakening, one of us can very easily remain in this Shudra type consciousness, right? Work hard, play hard. You see this entire world going through this material cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, and not being able to get out of it, right? And it doesn't matter what your family background is, right? You can be born in a wealthy family, a poor family. You can be born in this country or that country, this religion or that religion. It doesn't really matter. But the spiritual awakening that I am not this body and that I'm a servant of God, servant of Krishna, is what needs to, it's what the second birth is about. And through that qualification, they can start developing these Brahmana qualities. So what are these qualities of a Brahmana? So in Bhagavad Gita, actually, Srila Prabhupada explains in verse 1842 what a true Brahmana is. A true Brahmana is known by the qualities and not by any dress. Just because you see someone in robes or saffron dress or something like that does not mean that they're a Brahmana either, right? Or sometimes a title is given to them by so-and-so, or they even give themselves a title nowadays on social media, oh yeah, I'm a Brahmana, they can just do so many kind of weird things. So please be careful and stuff. So it's not dress or title, but you actually understand who a Brahmana is through qualifications. So what are these key qualifications? There's 6 of them, okay? So one of them is truthfulness, or satya. This is the Brahmana, or someone who is a Brahmana will always speak the truth for the benefit of others, right? And even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's like difficult to talk about, or someone may not want to hear it, they won't waver away from the truth, right? The second one is controlling of the mind and senses. We hear even in Nectar of Instruction, right? And stuff, one who can control their senses can become a guru or a Brahmana. So without controlling, your senses, your mind especially, right? Knowledge can become sentimental, or it can become theoretical, or so many, we start to waver, right? So having a very good control of mind, very good control of your senses, living a very, very regulated life, right? Is someone who who is the qualification of a Brahmana, right? They say in Nectar of Instruction, you're the one who can control the tongue, because through the tongue, all the genitals, the stomach, everything, mind, body, senses, everything can get easily controlled. So that in itself can be a whole lecture too on controlling the tongue and stuff like that. But controlling this mind and senses is one qualification, Shama and Dhamma. The third qualification of a Brahmana is austerity, or tapa. So voluntarily accepting to live a very disciplined life, right? And being very disciplined for spiritual growth is something that a Brahmana takes on very happily. So rising early in the morning, chanting your rounds attentively, living a very simple life, all of these things, not being attached to material things, these types of austerities are very important in the qualification of a Brahmana, right? Obviously someone who sleeps in very late, not chanting, doing all kinds of maybe intoxication, very complex life, very materialistic in their mindset. This is something, obviously, that will not lead to Brahmana qualities. So, another thing that is very important, or the fourth one, is cleanliness, sucha. So, a Brahmana is not only externally clean, but also internally have a sense of purity, right? Are very pure in consciousness. So, cleanliness is another very important quality of a Brahmana. So, internal cleanliness and external cleanliness. So, number 5, knowledge and self-realized knowledge, or realized knowledge. So, jnana and vijnana, right? So, Brahmana not only knows the scriptures, but they live the scriptures too, right? They're able to understand and live according to what is written in our shastras, right? So that is qualification of a Brahmana. And finally, they have firm faith in God and the scriptures. Their faith is very, very firm. Nothing can shake it, right? There's not any doubts that can throw at someone, like anyone who debates them, doubts, whatever may come at them. They're very strong and fixed. And not only strong and fixed in oh yes, I believe in that, but they can prove themselves through shastras, right? Or prove a point or debate or whatever. They have the their knowledge and their faith is extremely firm. So a Brahmana never doubts the authorities of the shastras or the Supreme Lord, right? So these are, if you find a person like this, they're a very qualified Brahmana. So, and unfortunately in today's age, with the growing of Kali Yuga, which we've read in previous chapters in this first canto, it becomes increasingly difficult to have these qualities. People are not so disciplined anymore, right? Thus we have billions of dollars worth of time management courses and anger management courses and this, controlling the senses. Oh, Krishna, that is extremely difficult for everybody and stuff. But if we can find someone, or if we can develop these things, then you are considered a Brahmana. And why are Brahmanas so important? why is it stressed here that this yajna has to be done by these twice-born brahmanas and not just, why can't anyone else do it and stuff like that? So in this verse, Maharaj Parikshit, he honors the brahmanas, and he wants Lord Krishna himself to make sure that these twice-born brahmanas are the ones conducting this particular yajna and stuff, because they're the intellectual and spiritual backbone of society. The reason why society goes haywire and there's so much discord between individuals and peoples and societies and groups and countries and so forth is because we're losing our intellectual and spiritual backbone, right? As we've seen, even like if you look at the regal empires, or if we go back even like some time ago, whether you were a prime minister, king, whatever ruler of a particular country, you had some class of priest or brahmanas or someone that you used as a guide in order to facilitate your leadership within society, right? So that guide has now been basically dissipated, or not, keep state and government apart and stuff, or religion and government apart and so forth. But back then, the brahmanas were very strong at making sure that leaders applied the rules of society based on the Shastra, right? That society remains peaceful. Like, they were able to help the leader who then ran the society, but show them how to bring upon peace within the society, right? Dharma was protected. What is the duty? And dharma is not like, well, my duty is to go to work and this and that, like that. What was the true dharma of that back then, right? What is the purpose of one's life? What is, how to bring about self-realization of the individuals within yourself and within your society? All these things were given and worked very nicely together with the brahmanas and the leaders. We know and we can see even in this day that if the brahmana society is very weak, this intellectual, spiritual class is very weak, then leaders, what do they become? They're fully demoniac leaders. We have a bunch of kamsas running around on the earth right now, I feel like, right? And stuff. So, and we see the degradation of society, right? Like, just step outside. I mean, it's just, crazy. It's just flat out crazy. Marijuana, like, facilities, and we even had an incident of marijuana in the temple of Hare Krishna. Like, it's just so much degradation. And Kali is going to thrive, right? Greed, lust, anger, all of these things that we don't want in society, right? Delusion, how much delusion is there? Can't believe a reel on social media now, because AI can make up whatever you want them to make up, whatever voice you want them to make up. So you don't even know what's the truth out there anymore. That's why this Brahmana class was so important, right? They kept this intellectual, the truth, the absolute truth, all of this stuff in check, so that it went from the leadership all the way down into society. So, protecting the brahmanas and respecting them is extremely essential. Every day we pray, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, right? Like when we say our prayers and stuff like that, is protection of the brahmanas and protection of the cows. So, now, okay, so we don't have necessarily this Brahmana class as strong as we wanted, but who knows? With the spread of this Krishna conscious process, as we preach more, as we spread this consciousness more, as more people take to the Shrimadbhagavatam, right, there will be this glorification for the next 10,000 years, right, and peacefulness. So, it's never too late. Don't lose hope just because these 6, qualifications are listed and, I can't do it. Yes, you can do it. In Kali Yuga, everyone has an opportunity to become a Brahmana, right? Through this Krishna conscious process. Srila Prabhupada struggled very hard to bring it all over the world, and he has. And we've seen in various countries this Krishna conscious process is spreading. It is being uplifting individuals within the society and so forth. And how do we practically do this? We can very easily do it because Srila Prabhupada has taught us, chant the holy name seriously. We just finished a beautiful Gaur Purnima celebration in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted all of us to chant, 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 right? His 8 instructions all revolve around chanting so that we can get this love of Godhead, right? So chanting the holy names. If we chant Krishna conscious or Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, right? This purifies the consciousness. This is the foundation of Brahmana life, right? Chant and you will become a Brahmana. Following the 4 regulative principles, right? When we take initiation and so forth, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we follow the 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. Just by following these 4 things, you can easily start developing these Brahmanical qualities. Hearing regularly of Bhagavatam and Gita, as we hear this is basically your second birth happening on a daily basis because we're hearing from these shastras, right? We're becoming purified by hearing these words. Living by example, right? Associate with people who live by these examples of truthfulness, simplicity, compassion. When we follow and we work with them, and we are preached by them or we follow their examples, then we can also develop these Brahmana qualities. And serving according to these qualifications, right? We learned in the 3rd verse of Shashastakam, right? Trinadapi suhichena toropi suhichena. So by not demanding respect, by living a life of humility, earning it through the character that we build, right? Character is super important. They do character like studies in schools, but what characters are they really teaching, Like it has to be this Trinadapi suhichena, right? And it has to be associated with this chanting of the Hare Krishna. So, Maha Mantra. So these are like the kind of real quick, the twice-born Brahmanas and what it is required in order to do these yajnas. Even today we try to do these yajnas, but where can you find a qualified Brahmana to do these yajnas now, right? And if a yajna is not performed very strictly according to the ingredients, the mantras, there's so much that goes into a yajna. If it's not done by a qualified Brahmana, and if there's any mistake, even in the pronunciation of a shloka, I'm out and stuff. Like you cannot perform a yajna. So again, twice-born Brahmanas, not by birth. It is through this purification, through discipline, and through devotion of Krishna, you can become a Brahmana. So, and it's possible. So don't be thinking it's not. So, King Parikshit, being a very qualified individual and a very unique individual, not only was he king and ruler of the entire world, but he followed very nicely this aspect of being ruled by the Brahmanas, right? And following all the instructions that have been given in our Shastras. So Maharaj Parikshit ruled according to what we call the Dharma, not personal opinion. Like, as king, I want to do this, or I want to do that. There was no I, right? He ruled according to what would please the Lord, right? And today's laws we see are rule according to like politics or conveniences or what will make me most popular, right? Like in society. But Dharma is something eternal. This is given to us by the Supreme Lord, how society should be ruled and stuff. So, Maharaj Parikshit was a devotee first, then a king. So this is very also important distinction. Maharaj Parikshit never thought that he's the enjoyer. A lot of people want to become king or ruler so that they can enjoy, right? Let me live in these large palaces or whatever, and everyone bow down to me, right? And stuff. So no, he understood that he is the servant of Krishna, and these citizens are also belongs to Krishna. So his duty was to protect them, was to bring about peace and prosperity to them, because they are non-different than children, Krishna's children. So anything we do in life, if we don't have Krishna in the center, anything will fail, right? By putting Krishna in the center of our lives, even like as a householder, right? If you're a husband of the family, right, you lead the family and so forth, you have to have Krishna in the center. That is the duty of a husband, is to bring Krishna into the center, right? So that the family can have peace and prosperity and goodness and so forth. So parents, if you are a parent of a child, you are also responsible, again, responsibility in spirituality of that particular child and its upbringing. And are you bringing good consciousness, discipline, all those things within that structure? Are you leading that child to become Krishna consciousness? Senior devotees in a temple, you have to lead by example, right? Are you also bringing good consciousness within the society, and so forth? So these are important things, and we've seen so many of these wonderful examples in this particular chapter. So like on a kind of daily basis, we can think about, are we ruling our own lives like Maharaj Parikshit, right? Whoever we're responsible for. Are we protecting our own spiritual life? Do we lead by example? And you don't have to have a position or a title to lead, right? Your actions are leading someone at some point or some time. Someone may be looking up to you, right? So are we leading our lives by, this example of Krishna consciousness? Are we keeping Krishna in the center? And so forth. So these are questions we can ask ourselves as we, go through the day. But we'll see that in Maharaj Parikshit's life, we see how alert he is when Kali appears, right, before him. And he did not tolerate this irreligion. And Kali, or this very degradation of the society, right? It happens very subtly. It's not like bombs dropping, which are currently, but it's through this negligence, or when you do like a compromise. When you compromise your principles, Kali will come in. When you neglect something, or maybe have false compassion, is another thing. Oh yeah, I want to protect them. No, you don't in the core of your heart, right? Boom, Kali can come in. So protecting Dharma and having good leaders is very important, so that society actually has true peace, true compassion, and true peacefulness, so that they can all work together, right? And so forth. So this is the lessons from the life of Maharaj Parikshit that we can take away. There's a lot to say in a half hour, but I'd like to end here. If there's any corrections or any thoughts or questions or comments, please stay. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Grantharaj.
Sure.
Questions or comments?
Thanks for a wonderful class. Knowing the qualifications of twice born Brahmins. It's not just by birth, one becoming Brahmin, but it's by their training, initiation, purification. So while you're going through the qualifications, I was just thinking okay, one after the other. The 4 pillars of Dharma is covered. What about the other 2? What I just got to see in the other 2. I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And Jnana and Vijnana, and having firm faith on the Lord and scriptures.
Yes. My Guru Maharaj, every time there was an initiation, and if there was second initiations to be done, he always talked about these qualifications of the Brahmanas and stuff like that. So it was very important that, if you're going to accept it, if you're going to come into spirituality, that you follow these particular qualifications. So, but yeah, we we have lots of examples. That's why studying Bhagavatam, we get example after example after example of these qualified Brahmanas and how they live their lives in various formats, right? Whether it's as a king or as a grahastha or whatnot. Still, you can follow these qualifications of a Brahmana. So, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll end the chapter tomorrow and start chapter 13. Jai. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.